What if you could find work that was meaningful, but didn't come with a standard toxic corporate workplace culture? At Palm Tree, we think we have exactly that, and our colleagues would agree. We're a consulting firm focused on the world of private equity and M&A. We do good work, and we're proud of that, but we also invest heavily into building a people-first culture. The investment in our people has resulted in high retention numbers across the firm since we started in 2010. If accounting, strategy, analytics, banking, and working with the world's smartest and kindest people sounds like the kind of work you'd enjoy, consider applying for a role at Palm Tree. Visit our careers page at palmtreellc.com or find the link in this episode's show notes for more information.
If you're looking to break into Bain and Company, this episode is a great episode for you. It shows you what you can expect for Bain case interviews. The interviewer in this episode is Juliane. She is a former Bain consultant and a management consultant case coach. There's a link in the show note to learn more about our Black Belt program that gives you 8 hours of one-on-one coaching, resume edits, a year of access to our consulting community, and more, where you can work with Juliane in a one-on-one setting to prep for case interviews. She's got some really amazing insights, and in this case, you'll see her take her interviewer hat off and put her coach hat on throughout the case after each section to give feedback to our candidate on his performance, right, going from good to great. Really helpful. Hope you take some notes. All right, let's get right into this Bain case interview demonstration.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. I'm a psychologist turned management consultant. So I started my career at Bain after I studied psychology in my master's, and I did another master at the LSE in management. I was there for 3 years, mainly in the private equity ring fence, but also worked on some transformation cases. And then I changed into public sector consulting, which was exciting, but I felt it was not that much hands-on. So then I joined a small consulting company that newly launched now in South Africa again, where I'm an engagement manager, which is great. And how I work with clients. So I'm also a systemic therapist. So I kind of bring those two sides together between psychology and prepping you really to feel ready for the interview and the technical skill set that I got out of the consulting field. And I'm sitting there in between. So I always make sure you're well-rounded, ready for the interview.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I am a recent graduate from a Saudi University in Barcelona, looking to enter into the consulting space, specifically targeting the MVPs. Currently living in Ottawa here with my wife. Excuse my cat. He's also quite excited to do the case. And yeah, looking forward to cracking this case.
Great. Yeah. How I will lead today's session is that I'll walk through the case with the candidate, Rajit. And in between, I will say I'm now taking on my coaching hat and give some feedback while we're going through the steps within the case so that it's very clear already in the case. Where do we stand? Where are the points of improvements, but also where the things that really go well, which is always important to know also, because we'll never get hired for the points of improvements, but always for the things we'll spike on. And then I'd give a feedback at the end when we then move to the Q&A. So that's what how we're gonna approach it today. In the sessions one-on-one, you can always choose, do you want feedback at the end or throughout? But today I'll do that and make it very clear when is the coaching hat and when I'm the case interviewer. All right. Great. I'll start that as the case interview. All right. Thank you so much for joining, Rajit. I hope you're ready for the case. Just remember that you're not supposed to use your phone, also not the laptop. Just pen and paper is fine, but you're welcome to ask any questions at any point in time that you might have. Are you ready? Can we start? Great. We actually have a private equity client here in this case today. And they've just acquired a leading European seafood restaurant chain. And the chain owns and operates around 700 restaurants across Europe. And it's actually, I'm super excited about this case because a good friend of mine was in a seafood, or he owned a seafood restaurant in South Africa and had to opt out. And we spoke at length about it. So I feel this case is bringing the challenges of the industry really to life, because what we found is that same store sales, they declined last year. And the private equity parent has obviously aggressive expectations because it's PE. And they want to see improved business performance. And now we want to know from you, how can the client improve the same store sales?
Okay, wonderful. Let's just make sure I've got everything taken down over here. So our client is a PE client, and they've acquired a seafood company across Europe, which has 700 restaurants operating all around the European Union. And they have an aggressive expectation, and they want to see how we can improve the business performance of the restaurants here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I got everything there. Wonderful. And, before I begin, I just wanted to, clarify a couple of things there. The first one being the aggressive expectations. I would like to know where are the expectations and how far do we want to see, and what do we consider success for the client with respect to this seafood chain?
That's a very good question. So success for the client is an increase in profitability.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. So the second thing I wanted to know is, do we have a timeline for this increase in profitability?
Not really. I mean, for private equity, the quicker the better.
Okay.
But we don't really have a timeline.
And a quick final question with regards to that is that in this space within the seafood restaurants, you did mention that one of your friends had to exit, and in the South African market. Is that something that we want to consider here, or is it something that we're out of scope in this situation?
No, that just got me excited about the case.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. If you just give me a couple minutes.
All right. I think let's pause here for a second.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Then I brought my coaching hat. So now I have my coaching hat on, and I'm going to give you feedback for the case recap and also for the clarifying questions.
Okay.
So for the case recap, I think what you did well is that you were spot on, you listened properly, and you got together the case the way I explained it to you. What I think is a point of improvement is the framework you use for that. I recommend you can recap it by saying the situation is as follow, the complication or the business problem is the following, and the objective or why we are here is the following. That helps you remember. Situation is always if someone asks you who's your client, what they are about. Complication is what's wrong with them at the moment, what's the problem, what's the challenge. And objective is always what you're going to try to achieve, that you circle back at the end of the case. That will make it much more succinct. And when you look at the clarifying question, what I liked is that you made sure you define the criteria of success. That is always very, very, very important. So that was great. And you double checked that you don't go out of scope, which is helpful. Generally, as a recommendation, what you can use as clarifying question is always definitions like you did. You can also double check what exactly happened, that you clear on that. Align on the goal like you did with the success criteria. And you can also use the clarifying questions to get a better understanding of the business model or the industry. But don't go into questions that require data or further insights, which you didn't. So that was great. All right, then we can move on. I'm taking off the coach hat and I'm the interviewer again, and you can now proceed.
Okay, perfect. I will just take a couple minutes to, put my thoughts together on paper, and then we can move forward from there.
Perfect.
We'll be right back after this quick message. His Strategy Simplified. It's Japheth here, your producer, and I really quickly wanted to pop in to tell you about Black Belt. So if you're targeting a consulting role at a firm like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, Oliver Wyman, Accenture, you name it, Black Belt is a structured case prep program that might be exactly what you need to push you over the hump and land that offer. So it is a structured case coaching program where you'll get one-on-one coaching from a former McKinsey, Bain, or BCG consultant. You'll also get a year of free access to our new community for exclusive employer info sessions, training, master classes, community support, and much more. Last but not least, you get unlimited digital materials, to support your case prep progress. Oh, and by the way, over 80% of black belts who complete the program land a consulting role. That's pretty incredible. So we'd love to see you inside of black belt. Join at the link in the show notes.
Quick note here. I just wanted to understand, are we looking at it on a per restaurant basis in the sense that because the PE has bought a chain of 700, is it a franchise model or is it the business is run, or what do you call it, internally?
No, so the chain owns and operates those 700 restaurants, and the same store sales have gone down for all of them.
Okay.
So we want to look overall, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, I have a basic, sketch out here, outlined on my paper, and I'd like to just walk you through what I have outlined here. We're looking at improving profitability for the firm, and when it comes to profitability, there's two major buckets that I would be looking at, which is the revenue and the cost side. But I have a third bucket as well, which are some external factors that might be affecting the profitability for the company. So looking at the first bucket, which is the revenue bucket, you did mention the sales have gone down. Now I would like to investigate a little bit on the sales. Is it with respect to the pricing that we're changing, or was it with respect to just the number of people that are coming to the restaurant in terms of what they're purchasing and how it's reducing in number? Also, when it comes to profitability, we always want to look at the cost side of things, as I mentioned. So within the cost side, we have the fixed costs and the variable costs. So we want to look into the fixed costs for the restaurant chains in terms of like the rental cost, the marketing cost that the chain is expending, and the other fixed costs such as like labor, SG&A, etc. And then in the variable cost side of things, I would also look into see if the prices for raw materials is increasing, like the price of seafood, the price of other materials like the oil in terms of for the cooking has changed, and that is creating some sort of issues for us. And then, of course, my third bucket that I was talking about, which is the external factors. Now, I want to see if there are some regulations with respect to seafood fishing, which is creating a problem for the restaurant chain in the EU zone, or maybe it's a new competitor that's come in and it's like making waves in the market, and we are really having a tough time competing with the exit competition that is there, or something like this, which is really putting pressure on our sales and reducing this. Now, that being said, I would like to start with the revenue side of things to understand what's happening. If that's okay, I want to look into some numbers with respect to the sales
Great.
side.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, let me take on my coaching hat to give brief overview of the structure. So overall, I think the structure was really good, but it wasn't great. And let me explain this. Good was that you have the three buckets. You explained what you're going to look at for each bucket. You didn't go into too much detail. I liked the level of detail. So all of this thumbs up. You took a little bit more than 2 minutes. Around about 2 minutes is fine. So that was good. Why I'm saying it wasn't great is because after I look at the structure and how the structure went, I always, as an interviewer, ask myself, how textbook-like did that sound? So how customized was that framework or that structure? And here I noticed that it was pretty much, it sounded a bit like it was taken out of the framework, the textbook, especially with the regulations as the external factors and just the high-level buckets that you have for revenue and costs. So here, I liked that you customized the cost when you spoke about seafood and oil, but you could have gone a little bit more into the specific case, what you want to look at. You could have brought in some new elements. For example, you could have looked also at sales and marketing under revenue, or you could have looked at the competitor case studies, best demonstrated practices in the industry under external factors, and that would have allowed you to customize it more, and that will take you to the next level of your structure. But the way you did it was good, and particularly that you asked me for guidance, you give a suggestion where to start, what to prioritize, and I can give you feedback. That's great. So from there we can continue with the interview. All right, wonderful. I think that works for me. We can start with revenue. And in revenue, you said you wanted to look at price and at quantity, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I wanted to see, the trend that's happening in the past and to now. How many customers are coming to the restaurant, and what is the average ticket of the purchase, and look at the trend and see why the sales are declining. So in effect, I want to
Yeah,
understand.
sorry. Yeah,
Perfect.
you're
We have
already full flow
a
there.
little
You
bit
got
of
it. So I have some data on that. Just remember that when we speak about same store sales, it's not necessarily sales. So please be very specific here. Same store sales is a metric that we use in the retail industry for the store sales for all of the stores that have been operating for a year or longer, so that we actually compare how are our functioning stores going. So it's not the bottom revenue line of the whole company, just to keep that in mind. And here we have some data for you where we see how price per item, what you want to look at, has developed, and number of item, which is the quantity you wanted to look at. Plus, we've added some data for customer traffic. And we've mapped out, SSS here stands for same store sales, and we've mapped out how they belong together. So if you look at that, what is your main key takeaway?
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you ever heard a new digital trend and thought to yourself, okay, does this really matter? Asking the right questions helps you cut through the noise and get down to what matters most. I'm Jim Hertzfeld, host of the What If, So What podcast, where we discover what's possible with digital and figure out how to make it real by asking what if, so what, and most importantly, now what? Subscribe and listen, and together we can turn big ideas into tangible actions so you can get shit done.
Just before I go forward with that, can you quickly re-explain what you mean by same-store sales? I kind of understood most of it, but I just want to clarify to make sure that we're
So
on
we're
the same page.
basically looking for the sales broken down for the same stores that have been operating for a year or longer. So we're basically breaking it down for that specific criteria, so that it's not overall sales. So what we're trying to get out of the data would be outliers of stores that just opened or that had to be closed, and that might skew our numbers.
Understood. Perfect. So if I look at the graphs here, we have price per item, number of items, and customer traffic. And looks like the blue dots are probably individual restaurants, and then the trend line is forming based on how the individual restaurants are performing there. In terms of the price per item, we see that the unit price is in an upward trend, if I'm not mistaken, and the change is moving by it's a percentage on both ends. So the percentage change in price is in a positive trend for all three. If I just take a quick minute here to understand the graphs and give you a better output on what could be the considerations.
Yep.
Okay, so from what I understand here, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, we have in the price, if the price is moving higher per unit, then we have a increase in the change for the same store sales. And it's this, and for the number of items, it looks like the number of items changed does not have a very good correlation. And the change in the traffic is the one with the highest correlation, where we have the monthly traffic over the 1 year for the same store have a big change from it looks like a very linear change from -10 to about 30% a change. So in terms of what I want to look forward more is the customer traffic, obviously, because there doesn't seem to be a big correlation comparing the R-squared numbers for all three. We have the highest one at 0.82 for the customer traffic, and that's what I'm most interested in to further dig into.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So that was a great analysis. Let me take my coach hat on. So what I think went really well as you were looking at the graphs is that you went step by step and you walked me through it in first describing the graphs, then interpreting the graphs, then trying to analyze and looking for key insights. And that all went very well. Just a minor note is that it's a correlation, not a trend. So we look for the different stores and we say, does the price per item or the number of items or the traffic for those stores correlate with SSS, which is same store sales? And what I think can now be the next step in how you work through the case is that you then, after you do the analysis, ask yourself, what is the so what? And the so what is always, what does that mean now for the client? You did say what you want to look into, which is great, but it's still on analysis level. Now I would like you to change yourself and say, what is the so what that you are taking away for the overall solution of the case? And then we can proceed.
Understood. So in terms of the impact that this has on the client is that definitely the number of customers is the one that is being affected based on the correlation graph. So it is important for us to see why there is a change in the number of customers. One, to understand, is there a change because of the customers' bucket itself has changed, that the customers are not looking into seafood anymore, or is that they have a secondary preference or some sort of substitute that they are going to as compared to our restaurant?
Let's take a look. It's not that there is a change over time. It's more that for different stores, you have different customer traffic, and that correlates with the same store sales. So it means that the higher the customer traffic, the higher the same store sales.
Understood.
So what you can take away from that is that a higher customer traffic correlates with a higher,
which means higher number of the number of new customers that are coming is what I would understand as the higher customer traffic, or are we considering every customer as just one entry? We are not looking at if they are returning customers.
We would generally look at the traffic in a given day that goes through the store, which includes new customers, but also recurring customers. And what I know from my friends, for example, in the industry, restaurants love recurring customers. Yeah.
Right. So it looks like if there is a higher traffic, there is a positive change on the sales. So that means that obviously the more the stores that have the more customers are doing better. So it would be important to see where are the stores that are having the higher customers and where are the stores that are having the lower customers, and if there is a reason that the stores with the lower customers are being affected in such a way.
And that's also the lever that you can then pull to say, changing the price, changing the number of items. It's not really correlated, but changing the customer traffic can have an impact. All right, great. If you go back to your structure, we have looked at revenue and we've looked a little bit at price per item and number per items. For price per items, you can then also zoom in, and I have some more data for you that helps you to close out that part of your structure, looking at the price in more detail. So what I have here for you is the average price per menu item for different clients or different comparative chains or other competitors. And it's nicely mapped out what's the average price per menu item. Obviously, that will differ from region to region, but that's average. And also the items per bill as well as the margin. So if you look at that information, what is the impact it has on the client?
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Hey, you. Yeah, you listening. Do you like personal finance or real estate? Are you itching to build wealth and create a better life for yourself or your family? Then you need to come check out the Life, Money, and More podcast with real estate agent, YouTuber, and actor Sage Weiss. This isn't your average finance show. We dive deep and do not sugarcoat topics around money and life. The Life, Money, and More podcast releases 2 episodes a week just for you, because we're all about helping you win in this crazy world we live in. Come join the thousands of listeners on the Life, Money, and More podcast.
Understood. So it looks like our client is having the highest price per menu item here compared to the other 4 chains that are there. And in terms of the items per bill that is being purchased by the customers, we are kind of on the same par as the other chains, where you see that we are 4.4, the highest being 4.7 and the lowest being 3.9. We're kind of in the middle there. And in terms of margin, we are positive in the sense that we are making a good amount of margin on the items that we sell. In comparison, we are the highest, and that seems to be definitely a good thing. So we can be considered as more of a company that is a bit on the high pricier side, but also one that is being one where customers are still willing to purchase multiple items of the menu.
Great, thank you so much for that. And what type of questions come out of that, or what would you like to double click on?
So we have seen that like the price within the same store sales does not have such a big correlation with regards to the changes. So affecting the price, I do not think will give us a big increase in the number of sales. And I don't think the elasticity is there for this firm. Considering that we are kind of in the middle when it comes to the number of items purchased in the restaurant, I don't think it's a smart decision for us to be playing with the price to be more competitive in that sense. I think we are in a healthy zone currently.
Okay, great. Let me take on my coaching hat. I think that was a good summary. You seem to really understand what the data is about. I think you can improve by being more succinct to the so what. What does that mean now? I get it that you're understanding it, but you can be more to the point and specific, that this graph shows, it reaffirms what we've learned, that for price and quantity, there isn't much that we can do to affect same-store sales. So we're gonna double click on the customer traffic. That will reaffirm that. What I also think was really great is how you walked through that graph in first, again, explaining it, interpreting it, analyzing it, and you taking me along with it, which is really great. And you did compare it nicely. Also, when I double clicked, the so what was there. However, there's one point of improvement in your mental math. You're super comfortable with the numbers. I get a sense that you're good with numbers. However, look at the profit. What you did is that you looked at the profit only in proportion. And yes, your key takeaway was right. They have the highest profit margin. But when I looked at that graph, what I also saw is that the yellow, our client price, is round about 10% higher than chain 1 that has a second highest price. Look at the margin. That is...
Yeah, it only...
So if I calculated in preparation also for the case, just out of interest, and that shows that there is a bit of leeway that our client might also have. Maybe they're purchasing very expensive items that we could take off the menu. But that's just a side comment. What I just want you to all take home is that look at the numbers in relative terms, but also absolute terms, to be on the safe side, to really understand the graphs. So that's just what I wanted to add. Wonderful. Okay, great. Now I'm taking off my coach hat again, and we have agreed that we're going to double click on the customer traffic. What would you look at if you were the consultant and had to look at the customer traffic for this specific case? What are you interested in?
That's a great question. Just take a quick 10 seconds to think about what I would look at for customer traffic.
Just on top of your mind. Don't have to go into much detail.
Okay, perfect. So with respect to the customer traffic, I would look at the number of customers, the times at which they come, so peak hours, non-peak hours, the amount of time they sit in the restaurants, taking up space, so which means that we cannot fill new customers, the average ticket price that they're purchasing. So we have that a little bit already.
Ticket price is on a different page. We're just looking at traffic.
Okay, so in terms of traffic, definitely number one will be the number of customers that come to the restaurants, and the time that each customer is sitting within the restaurant, and spending spending within the restaurant.
Yeah, spending is on a different page, but for customer traffic, how many people come and how much time they spend in the restaurant is a really good call. Right. However, what also influences it is how many people do you actually fit in your restaurant. And here, that's the third variable, right? Informing or influencing customer traffic. And what I have here for you is a comparison of the table sizes. And on the left-hand side, there is the party size of parties together coming into the stores. Take a look at that. What does this chart tell you?
With a quick notice, I can see that our largest frequency of table size is 4, followed by 6, 2, then 8. Whereas in terms of the number of customers that are coming in, is highest is 2, and then we have 4 customers, and then 3, and then 1, and then we also have customers that are 9 plus, where we might not be able to seat them in the one table that we have, which is our highest number is 8. So looking at this more accurately, we can see that, maybe changing all of 4 table seating to 2 table seating might be advantageous, in the sense that we will be able to seat more customers in the restaurant at the same time, considering that we don't have so many 2 table seatings in the restaurants.
Great, yeah. Because what we actually find, if you look at this graph, is that the 4 tables or 4-seater tables are just above 50% utilized during the peak hours, because there's so many parties that come in just 2 people taking up the 4-seat tables. And that reconfiguration of the restaurant setup is your hypothesis can have a huge impact on the actual revenue. And I would like you to think that on the profitability, and I would like you to think that through by actually calculating what is the bottom line impact of adding 2 seats per restaurant. So just adding 2 seats per restaurant, what is the bottom line impact on profitability that you will get out of that?
Okay, so just adding 2 seats
per restaurant.
Per restaurant. We have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 10.95 is the average menu price, euros.
Correct.
And that I'm just going to round off to 11 to make calculation a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So that's about 22. That's about 11 per
item, right?
per item.
Not per sale.
And then we have we have about 4.4 items that they are purchasing.
Yes.
So that gives us about a total cost of 48.4, but that is of course just for one seat. So if we take that in and double it, basically.
But happy for you to round it to 50.
Okay, perfect. If we take that and double it, so that will put us around $100 per 2 seats in terms of revenue. And then we said that our margin is about 30%. So we make around $30 per restaurant with an additional of 2 seats.
That is per restaurant, but that think about it. When will those seats really be utilized? The whole day, or what are we looking at? Or is it just once a day, or because now you calculated once a day?
Right. So if we look at this, it's $30 per restaurant. Sorry, $30 per customer that the seat populates, and on average we can say, or maybe you can give me the number here. A 2-person seat is filled in once per hour. And if we are working maybe 10 hours, it's about 10 seats that are being filled.
So we have a table turns per hour 2. The number is 2 twice. But only you can only really calculate for peak hours, right? Because if you're not full, it doesn't matter that 2 people sit at a 4-seat table. So the peak hours are only 2 hours.
Okay, so it's a peak hour, 2 turns per hour for 2 hours, right? So that's about 4 turns. And in the non-peak, do we have any can we consider any 2-person seatings?
No, in the non-peak, it doesn't really make a difference.
Okay. If that's the case, then we have $30, 4 times, which would in the peak hours, which would give us $120 per restaurant, and then we have about 700 restaurants, right? But we're just looking at the bottom line impact on profitability for on a per restaurant, or for the company as a whole?
Take it for all 700.
Okay. And that would put us at around 84,000 for the company if every restaurant was added by another 2 seats.
In which time
frame? On a daily
basis.
Yes.
Okay. That would take us to around about 30 million euro in a year, which is quite significant.
Yes.
Great. For the math and calculation, just taking quickly my coaching head. You did calculate well. I also like that you walk me through, but I think what clearly came out is that it's very important that you first structure your equation nearly like an issue tree, so that you first very clear, what do I need to know to get to this final answer? What are all of the variables that I need to consider? And then ask your interviewer, where do you have data and where do I have to come up with assumptions, so that you put a number to each of the variables. That is a much more promising approach than you thinking of some variables and then thinking of some numbers and then already calculating, and then it becomes complicated. So please keep that in mind. All right.
Yes.
And now, we are nearly at the end. I would like you to sum up the case and give a final recommendation.
Okay. Just looking at my notes here for a second. So the main objective of the firm is to increase the profitability, and based on the analysis, we definitely looked into the declining sales. We looked at the change or the correlation between on a same store sales perspective for the price, the number of customers, and the traffic, and we definitely found that there was a key inference with respect to the traffic and a good correlation there, where the higher the number of traffic were in the store provided a higher sales for the store. And then just to double down and make sure that we were on the right page, we looked into the prices, and we saw that definitely the correlation there with respect to changing in prices was not there. Based on that, we further investigated adding 2 seats per restaurant and seeing what the impact of that would be on the sales. Based on some calculations, we definitely can see about a good impact, where we have about 30 million euros within the annual period for the profitability within the company by adding 2 seats. And this 2 seats doesn't mean that we have to go and add 2 seats. We can always reduce the distribution or change the distribution within the existing restaurants for more 2 seats, because based on what we saw, that our restaurants are mainly 4-seater, but the number of customers that are coming are mainly 2-seater, which means that they are only 50% utilized. And that means that we can just go ahead and look into restructuring the existing space within the restaurant in order to improve the profitability by a significant amount. And that would be the main recommendation for us, is to identify ways to restructure the restaurants, and in order for them to be able to be most profitable during the peak times when customers are coming to the restaurant. In addition to this, in terms of next steps, I would also investigate a little bit the price. It looks like even though our ticket price on average in terms of our competitors is higher, we do see that our margin is only 2% higher than the competitors. So that would be the next steps, where I would investigate in seeing why are we purchasing items that offer higher price. Maybe it's because of a better quality, maybe not, but that's something that I would like to look into for sure. And finally, in terms of the risks for this, I would definitely see what a change would happen in terms of the restructuring of the restaurants, in terms of the number of regular customers that are coming, how happy or unhappy they would be to see that their favorite spots, for example, within the restaurants have been changed because of this, and how that is going to affect the returning customers, which is what's most important for restaurants like this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for delivering the case. All right, you cracked it. And now I'll take on my coaching hat for a last time to give you feedback on the final recommendation and communication. So it showed that you have a ton of insight into the case, and you really summarized a lot of the insights. Just the way I got it was more like a presentation in academia, where we first tell the audience what we did, then we told the audience what we found, then we tell the audience what the insights are, then we go to the recommendations, and then we look at everything that would be possible to bring a change. And that is not necessarily, or that's actually not how we communicate and give recommendations in consulting. So we flip it. So we start with the actual recommendation and we prioritize one. What is the biggest lever that you can pull that brings the biggest impact at the lowest cost? That is the final recommendation. And I always say top down, talk to me that if I cut you after 30 seconds, you've said what you really wanted to say. And that needs to be the final recommendation. And then you give me the 1, 2, 3 main arguments that back up that final recommendation. And then you can go into additional data if you want, and into the steps to be taken to implement that. Also, if you bring risk, I'm not a fan of risk alone. I always want to know how you're going to mitigate them as part of the implementation. But these are then rather details at the end. So basically flip your communication on the head, and that would then be in line with the top-down communication. But thank you so much for the overall case. I think I've already given a lot of feedback on your points of improvements to take that to the next level. Overall, keep in mind that if I'm the interviewer, what I really have as a question at the back of my mind is really, does this candidate think and work like a consultant? And there I always want to know, can you recap the case, but also really focus on the objective? Consultants always look at the objective first. Also, what I will keep in mind is, does this person work with a hypothesis? So we call it answer first at Bain, but driven by a hypothesis, which is an idea what might be the solution. That is something you can add next time. That differentiates a great from a good candidate. And then can the candidate structure well? And also, can they see the so what? I would never hire a person based on a great analysis. I always hire based on them understanding what it means for the client. And lastly, can they also communicate nicely top down? And I think you've done really well, and you can now take the next steps to take that to the next level. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you're feeling stuck in your case prep process, consider working with Management Consulted via one-on-one interview coaching. You can grab 1 hour, 4 hours, or 8 hours. And we've got some amazing case prep programs that have been really effective at helping people get from wherever they're at to interview ready. Learn more at the link in this episode's show notes.